Hi, class. My name is Jonathan Motz. I decided to do my discussion video on Molly Pitcher. To start, Molly Pitcher is an interesting character in my personal life. I was in the United States Army for 6 years, and I was in the field artillery. And when I saw Molly Pitcher's name on the list of characters or people to study for this discussion post, I had to choose her. In the field artillery folklore and tradition, Molly Pitcher is a very prominent figure. For the longest time, field artillery was a male-only um, occupation for the United States Army. And in an effort to recognize spouses for soldiers who performed well, uh, the Army or certain units within the Army would basically award those women with the Molly Pitcher Award. And in order to do this, those women had to demonstrate um a lot of extra volunteer and outreach and um, all the all the things that military spouses do in an effort to benefit the unit. I have been to many field artillery ceremonies, award ceremonies, where the Molly Pitcher Award was given out to military spouses, which I think is really interesting that this award still carries weight due to her connection to the American Revolution and then to the history of the field artillery in the United States Army. So, for a little background, Molly Pitcher is kind of a legendary person. She essentially was a woman who recognized the uh, massive effects, both physically and mentally, for continental soldiers on the battlefield in the Revolutionary War. And she went and assisted during battles and provided them with water, hence the pitcher, and also stood in their stead when they were injured or killed and actually fired the cannons um as continental soldiers could no longer fight. It's really interesting that as I read about Molly Pitcher, it seems like she's an amalgamation of several characters. There was more than two or three women that actually went out to the battlefield and provided water for soldiers who had been hurt or killed, or I'm sorry, that had dehydration, and also provided assistance for soldiers who had been hurt or killed. But it does seem that there is a primary character whose name is Molly Ludwig. Um, Molly Ludwig, kind of a legendary and not terribly accurate because historians aren't necessarily sure how they can't validate some of this information. But it is believed that Molly Ludwig was originally the servant to General Irvine, who was a Continental general, and then where she kind of established this relationship and this admiration for military service. During the Battle of Monmouth, Molly Ludwig went out and saw all these soldiers collapsing from the heat and provided them with water. And then, as I said before, the battle was raging, and she realized that uh, not only could she help by providing water, but she could help by manning the cannons. And she did that, and that's still the legend that carries today. There are several other women who, like I said before, had done similar things by providing water and other logistical support for those on the battlefield. Um, as far as the questions are concerned, do I think women of other profession would have filled the shoes of Molly Pitcher? Yeah, absolutely. I think, like I said, there were several other women, and probably many, many more that provided assistance on the battlefield for soldiers that that aren't um, noted in historical documents or just by spoken stories. And is it important to have a famous female from the American Revolution? Yeah, absolutely. First of all, we don't want to dismiss the incredible sacrifices and things that women did for the cause of the Continental Army. And by putting a name, even if it's not terribly accurate or if it's a little bit of a legend, by putting a name or a person associated to those actions, we can kind of connect some humanity to those women who aren't as necessarily uh, connected or as well known as other continental military leaders. And yeah, there is this person does hold some importance as a famous icon. Like I said, Molly Pitcher does have some legendary status, and there are still traditions to this day that are attributed to Molly Pitcher. And yes, there are some writings that challenge quote unquote validity to the legend, and but I will say that it doesn't. I think for me, it doesn't really matter how terribly accurate the history is, because we can't really retroactively go back and change the accuracy of the writings from the time, but we can certainly use the sacrifices and actions of those incredible women to make sure that their historical significance isn't forgotten and to try to uh, really have some lasting attributions for those incredible women. I found three sources that I thought were specific to this study. There was The Woman Who Fought the War, written by Mark Cunningham. There's also a book called Molly Pitcher, Young Patriot, written by Augusta Stevenson. And then there was an article written by Carol Claver called An Introduction to the Legend of Molly Pitcher. And when looking through these three sources, it reinforced that there was more than just one woman by the name of Molly Ludwig, who certainly is worthy of being talked about and read about. But all of these women certainly should be remembered. And it is unfortunate that their name isn't necessarily remembered as often as Molly Ludwig or quote unquote Molly Pitcher. But it does reinforce the fact that there is still some historical significance for what the women of the Revolutionary War effort did for the soldiers actually on the battlefield. And frankly, if these legends can assist historians and students who are studying this topic in looking for those things that women did and providing them uh, a little bit of imagery for in the historical sources, I think it's important for us to do that. Anyways, I had a really interesting time researching this one, especially because of my personal relationship to Molly Pitcher. I was very young when I was in the military, so I was not married at the time, but I still remember to this day watching soldiers go up and receive awards and then having a very special moment for one or two of those spouses every year who dedicated time and sacrifice and did things for the unit, and they would be recognized as well. And I think that's very special. And I really admire the fact that this tradition is still kept, even after these hundreds of years passed. Thank you.